Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushua, Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. The honor to the apostles, the elders, and salutations to you, sincere brothers, teaching in truth and in sincerity. This lesson will be entitled The Black Woman and Munchausen Syndrome. My source is CNN.com, and this article is entitled A Texas Mom is Going to Prison After Putting Her Son Through Unnecessary Medical Procedures. This article was posted on October the 14th, 2019. A Dallas mother made her son go through unnecessary medical procedures throughout the first years of his life. Court documents say she was sentenced to 6 years in prison, according to her attorney. The young child visited the doctor more than 300 times and underwent 13 major surgeries. CNN affiliate KTVT reported, citing a Child Protective Services report. Kaylin Bowen Wright pleaded guilty to injury to a child causing serious bodily injury, the affiliate reported, after she began lying to medical professionals when her son was barely a few days old, the indictment documents say. On April 24, 2009, 11 days into the complainant's life, it was reported that the suspect, his biological mother, and her mother were observed pouring out milk that the complainant didn't finish and lying to medical professionals that the complainant had taken the entire contents of his bottle, the documents say. Okay, and more than likely, she probably got this behavior from her mother because she was a victim of what her mother did to her, causing her to have Munchausen syndrome. All right. And just to prove that, Ezekiel 16:44, behold, everyone that used proverbs shall use this proverb against thee, saying, as is the mother, so is her daughter. And I will read that again. Ezekiel 16:44, behold, everyone that used proverbs shall use this proverb against thee, saying, as is the mother, so is her daughter. Going back into the article, on April the 24th, 2009, 11 days into the complainant's life, it was reported that the suspect, his biological mother, and her mother were observed pouring out milk that the complainant didn't finish and lying to medical professionals that the complainant had taken the entire contents of his bottle, the documents say. Right. So like I said before, more than likely, this lady, Kaylin Wright, got this behavior because she was a victim of her mother's abuse. Back into the article, that incident kicked off an 8-year cycle of Bowen Wright jumping from doctor to doctor seeking medical treatments for her son and lying to doctors about his medical history and condition. As a result, her son had to go through new tests, exams, surgeries, and procedures, as well as be hooked to feeding tubes, central lines, and other ports. The complainant developed life-threatening blood infections in the central lines on two separate occasions, which required the complainant to be admitted to the intensive care unit, court documents say. Bowen Wright's attorney, Heath Hyde, insisted her son had medical problems. While we respect the judge's decision and take responsibility for recklessly not following through doctor-recommended follow-ups, we stand by the fact that her son had medical problems as verified by the numerous rounds of tests and procedures performed by various doctors that were determined by their independent evaluation, Hyde said in a statement to CNN. These procedures would not have been done but for existing problems, the attorney added. No evidence was presented she intentionally performed any acts to make him ill, and this nigga is lying. He was in hospice care at 5 years old. If you know anything about hospice care, people are placed there when they are about to die, normally elderly people. He was in hospice care at 5 years old. Bowen Wright's son ended up in hospice care when he was 5, where she signed a do not resuscitate order for him according to court documents. He was discharged in 2015 after his mother refused to listen to doctors who recommended an 8-week stay during which he could be taken off feeding tubes, IV hydration, and oxygen and start living a somewhat normal life. Bowen Wright lied and said her insurance had denied covering the stay according to court documents. After the son was admitted to intensive care again for a third life-threatening blood infection, he was taken off his feeding tube, court documents say, and began eating well and had a normal diet. But when he was released, his mom did not follow doctor instructions and instead transferred the boy to another medical center. The court documents say she refused to provide previous medical records and documents, and doctors began more testing. She lied about her son's medical problems. Court documents say Bowen Wright reported her son had medical problems that were never witnessed by medical providers and did not listen to doctors who suggested routes which might result in less medical intervention. And best believe when this son develops in the life or in his lifespan, he is going to be fucked up. Because, through the spirit, I believe this is the same thing that happened to her. All right. When her son was removed from her care, he was on IV and oxygen. He was taken off both and began eating a regular diet, normally instead of through a feeding tube. The complainant had no seizure activity, no choking or aspirating on food, and showed no fatigue. Court documents say instead the complainant was up and playing most of the time in the hospital, which proves that this is a classic example of Munchausen syndrome. He was released to a foster home and did not have any medical problems when he was interviewed again 12 days after being taken out of Bowen Wright's care, court documents say. But the child has suffered bodily injury from the blood infections and radiation he'd been exposed to, the documents say. He also has serious mental impairments from the suspect continually teaching the complainant that he is ill and restricting his movement from an early age by putting him in a wheelchair. So yeah, he's going to be fucked up for the rest of his life. All right, let's look up the term Munchausen syndrome. According to WebMD.com, Munchausen syndrome by proxy states is a psychological disorder marked by attention-seeking behavior by a caregiver through those who are in their care. Okay? In this example, the son, which was 5 years old, okay, is a victim of this syndrome, okay, which was exercised by his mother. MSP is a relatively rare behavior disorder. It affects a primary caretaker, often the mother, Miss Wright. The person with MSP gains attention by seeking medical help for exaggerated or made-up symptoms of a child in his or her care. All right? Remember, this little boy was placed in hospice at 5 years old, as well as he was placed in a wheelchair, and he had over 300 medical procedures. All right, let me just make sure it was 300. Also, the young child visited the doctor more than 300 times and underwent 13 major surgeries. Okay. As healthcare providers strive to identify what's causing the child's symptoms, the deliberate actions of the mother or caretaker can often make the symptoms worse. The person with MSP does not seem to be motivated by a desire for any type of material gain. While healthcare providers are often unable to identify the specific cause of the child's illness, they may not suspect the mother or caretaker of doing anything to harm the child. And that's the reason why she continued to switch from doctors to doctors, so she wouldn't get caught. However, she wasn't compelled for a material gain. It was just attention-seeking behavior. In fact, the caregiver often appears to be very loving and caring and extremely distraught over her child's illness. People with MSP may create or exaggerate a child's symptoms in several ways. They may simply lie about symptoms, alter tests, such as contaminating a urine sample, falsifying medical records, or they may induce symptoms through various means, such as poisoning, suffocating, starving, and causing infection. Okay? So if this lady went to a so-called psychiatrist, right, he would diagnose her with Munchausen syndrome. Okay? Deuteronomy 28:56, the tender and delicate woman among you. When you go into the term tender in Hebrew, it's fearful. And when you go into the term delicate in the Hebrew, it's luxurious. So let's replace these Hebrew words, okay? So let's replace these words. All right, so in the Hebrew, it would say Deuteronomy 28:56, the fearful and luxurious woman among you, which would not, and in the Hebrew for adventure, it's test. All right, so which would not test to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness. Her eye, meaning mind, shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom and toward her son and toward her daughter. All right, and when we filter this article through the scriptures, okay, hence the term Munchausen syndrome, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for the want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, hence 70 AD, wherewith thy enemies shall distress thee in thy gates. Okay? And so her mind shall be evil toward her son. A Texas mom is going to prison after putting her son through unnecessary medical procedures. The young child visited the doctor more than 300 times and underwent 13 major surgeries. All right. So this proves how her mindset was evil toward her son. And this little boy has been going through this turmoil, all right, for a long period of time. Okay? Salaki, I want to say. It's Job 37. Job 39 and 13. Gavest thou the goodly wings unto the peacocks? And we see how beautiful the wings of peacocks are, or wings and feathers unto the ostrich, which leave her eggs in the earth and warm them in dust, and forget that the foot may crush them, or that the wild beast may break them. Why? Because this beast is exhibiting careless behavior towards her soon-to-be offspring. Okay? She is hardened against her young ones. All right. Now, this is symbolic for the Israelite woman. All right. So she is hardened against her young ones. And in the Hebrew, that means she treats them harshly. And what's the proof? The young child visited the doctor more than 300 times and underwent 13 major surgeries. All right. Kaylin Wright pleaded guilty to injury to a child causing serious bodily injury. Okay. The affiliate reported after she began lying to medical professionals when her son was barely a few days old, the indictment documents say. All right, this is proof how the so-called black woman treats her offspring, or treats her sons and daughters. He was in hospice care at 5 years old. It's not this being treated harshly? Okay? Or isn't this an example of being treated harshly? But the child has suffered bodily injury from the blood infections and radiation he'd been exposed to, the documents say. He also has serious mental impairment from the suspect continuing teaching the complainant that he is ill and restricting his movement from an early age by putting him in a wheelchair. All right, so you can filter this current event through the scriptures. She is hardened against her young ones. Now remember, in the Hebrew, that means treated harshly, as though they were not hers. And this woman, Ms. Wright, act like her son wasn't hers. Her labor is in vain without fear. Okay? And that's proof. All right? She doesn't fear Yahweh Bashem Al Shah. All right? When you go into that term feminine, it means lack of faith. All right? Because the Most High have deprived her of wisdom. All right? So she doesn't have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. Why? Because it's his will. All right? Only the elect men will have faith. Now, you do have elected women as well. All right? But the Most High deals with men. His flock are men. Neither have he imparted to her understanding. So, the Most High did not give this bitch any understanding. She doesn't have understanding to properly provide care for her son, nor, and most importantly, she doesn't have spirituality. Lord willing, this was an edifying lesson. Shalom.